Alright, this is our second day of transformation notes, and today we're going to looking at the graph first and coming up with the equation. So the first thing we need to determine is the name of the parent graph of the function below. This is a cube root function, which you should know from last class and the class before when we talked about parent functions. If it looks like an S, that's our cube root function. So in words, described how the graph was transformed into the graph below. The parent graph usually starts at 0, 0. However, this one, the center was moved over 2 and down 1. So we can say it moved right 2 units and down 1 unit. Since from the new center it goes over 1 and up 1, we know that the A value is 1. And then based on what we just wrote, we can determine H and K. Since it moved right 2, we know H has a positive 2. And then since it moved down 1, we know K is negative 1. So typically our cube root function looks like this. Y equals A times the cube root of x minus h plus k. Now we just have to plug in our A, H, and K values. So y equals 1 cube root of x minus 2 plus negative 1. Now typically we don't see the 1 out front, and we wouldn't write plus a negative. So for my final answer, I'm going to write y equals the cube root of x minus 2 minus 1. So since we don't have to have the 1 there, and plus a negative is the same thing as a minus. That's my final answer. So let's try another one. What's this parent graph? Hopefully you said it was a quadratic. How could we describe how the parent graph was transformed into this graph? Well, we know usually it starts at 0, 0, so this one was moved left 1 and down. So moved left 1 and down 6. Also, if you notice, typically we would go over 1, up 1. This one goes over 1, up 2, so it was stretched up. So let's look at the A, H, and K values for this. Since instead of going from our starting point, instead of going over 1, up 1, it went over 1, up 2, that tells us our A value is 2. Since the graph moved left 1, we know K is negative 1. Sorry, H is negative 1. Moved left is H equals negative 1. And then K down 6 means K is negative 6. So typically, our quadratic equation looks like y equals A times x minus h squared plus k. Plug in our numbers. Y equals 2 times x minus negative 1 plus negative 6. So now we want to change out this minus a negative and plus a negative. So our final answer will be y equals 2 times x plus 1 squared. Did I leave that off? Minus 6. That's all for today's notes. See you in class.